What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr War Games, bringing you another deck from Blazing Vortex, and this time it is of course Metalfoes. Now Metalfoes actually received 4 brand new cards. They got this guy, Metalfoes Vanisher right here, they got the Metalfoes as Vortelis here, they also got a brand new level 1 scale and a brand new fusion spell that I'll take you through the profile and show you a little bit later on. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more future content. If you would like to see the Yang Zing version of this deck, then smash that like button. If it gets 50 likes within the first 24 hours, I will then bring you the Yang Zing version of this deck. With all of that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into today's profile of course, Metalfoes. Now, Metalfoes are another one of the pretty much pendulum decks that suffered quite a lot from the introduction of link monsters, purely because their resources all go to the extra deck, so they need to be able to manage that a lot more. With like Pendulum Magicians, they want to make link monsters, whereas with the Metalfoes, they want to make fusion monsters, which is why it's so important that the brand new fusion spell actually helps them do that. Now, we play triple of pretty much all Metalfoes that we can, so triple gold drivers. So I'm going to go with the scale ones first. Now, obviously, all of them share the same effect. That once per turn, you type one other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metalfoes spell or trap directly from your deck. Now, you're only going to be using this a certain amount of times, because we're only technically running, apart from Metalfoes fusion that you're going to cycle, about 4 or 5 Metalfoes spells and traps. We've then, of course, triple silvered, and then we've got triple of the brand new one, which is the triple Metalfoes Melcaster. Now, exact same kind of effect on the scale. Its monster effect is if this card on the field, in general, is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one face-up Metalfoes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand except itself. But you cannot activate it or cards with its names to place it into the Pendulum Zone for the rest of this turn, except by card effect. You can only use this effect once per turn. Now, obviously, the idea is that by doing this, you get to add it back to your hand, and then you get to Pendulum Summon it out. You can't use it as a scale in the Pendulum Zone, and you can't activate its effects, but you can still use it as fusion material in the hand. And that's one thing the deck was missing, was it was missing ways of recurring its resources. Also, keep in mind that it has been confirmed in Ghosts from the Past, which comes out in March. They will be reprinting the original Metalfoes cards, like your Gold Driver, your Mithridium, and stuff like that. So we could see Heavy Metalfoes Electromite come back, fingers crossed. Then the other new card is the one Metalfoes Vanisher. Now, the reason we're only playing one of this in this particular build, in Yang Zings I'll definitely be playing two, is it's a little bit more specific. So its pendulum effect is if a monster or monsters you control is destroyed by card effect, except during the damage step, you can add one Metalfoes card from your graveyard to your hand except itself. So again, just like its counterpart, it is actually being able to add you back your resources and help you manage your resources, which is incredibly important in the Metalfoes deck right now. Its monster effect, which is great, is while this card is in your hand, you can target 2 face-up cards you control, including a Metalfoes card, destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card from the hand. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a Metalfoes card, you can target one monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard, banish it. Only use each effect once per turn. Now you can kind of see how this is so good in Yang Zings, because the idea is you would pop one Yang Zing, pop a Metalfoes card, and then go from there. But there is a 2900 beater. Sometimes you'll bring it out of counter because it's just a lot more difficult for your opponent to get past. In the past, you were using Volflames. Now you can use Vanisher as well. Speaking of Volflames, moving on to the scale 8s, we're playing triple Volflame, double Stealing. I couldn't find my third. If I could find a third, what I would do is I'd cut out a Metal Cast just to kind of put the Stealing in. But even then, I still really like the Metal Cast because it helps you maintain your resource. And then, of course, we've got triple Bismugear. So this is the other effect monster that we had a long time ago. So, again, once per turn, you type one other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metalfoes spell trap from your directly from your deck. But if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand during the end phase of this turn. Now, it's a big shame that it says during the end phase. If it was just add one, then, you know, it'd be perfect. We then have to play a utility card, and the utility card we play is Triple Rescue Rabbit. I would like to play Box of Friends. I couldn't find my copies of Box of Friends. The only reason I'd play that is because technically you can summon Box of Friends out with like 1-for-1 and stuff like that. The one big thing with Rescue Rabbit, and of course an issue with Rescue Rabbit, is if it gets ashed or impermed or stopped, you pretty much neg your normal summon outright. But if it doesn't, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting two Metalfoes normal monsters, either 2 silver, 2 gold drivers, or of course 2 of the, wherever you are, 2 of the Steelen, and then you've plussed an additional card. So that's where it's like, good reward, but very risky in playing it, but it's kind of a necessity in the pure build. Now, another kind of little mini engine that I found, and I kind of really like this, to be fair, and this is because of Duel Evolution, so go check them out on YouTube. They've got some really, really cool Duel replays, but I've got the Cleathorpe engine. Now, the idea behind this is you are playing triple Summoner Art, because the Summoner Art allows you to search out your Vol Flames, but it can also search out your Scout and your Monolith. Now, obviously, the first target you're going to go for is you're going to use Summoner Art to turn into Scout. Scout is then going to search out your Monolith. You then use a Metalfoes Scout to pop the Scout. And then what you can do is you can Pendulum summon out Scout and Monolith, and straight away you've got an Infinity. So what that kind of does is that does allow you to kind of protect from like Nibiru's or any heavy influences on your particular board. And it also allows you to set up a very nice protective monster while also utilising a card that you could naturally already play in the deck for consistency. And what you're ideally aiming to do with a deck like this is you're ideally aiming to gain as much advantage to your hand as possible, set up your scales, use the Metalfoes cards to get all of the cards out of the deck so that they can be in the extra deck or the graveyard, and then start using your new Metalfoes to start recycling them that way, and that way you're always maintaining resources, and technically you're always gaining back resource to plus. So when your hand would be 5, it would then become 6 with the Metalfoes, or 7 with the Metalfoes, because you're just adding the cards back from the extra decks and not the general deck itself. Now, I've gone with more of a control build on this, purely because when you look at the current meta right now, you've got to be able to stop a Vanity's Fiend, you've got to be able to break, at worst, a double VFD and a Shen Shen, or a Shen Shen and a VFD. And one of the best ways to do that, especially in a deck like this, and I would say Metalfoes are probably better than Shadows at doing it, is playing triple Super Poly. Now, the reason I've done this, and when you see the extra deck, you'll understand, but all of the Metalfoes fusion monsters require one Metalfoes monster plus either a fusion monster, a normal monster, a monster with 25 or less attack, a monster with 3,000 or more attack, 2 or more monsters with 3,000 or less attack. So what that basically allows you to do is you go draw, standby, main. Okay, you're under VFD, fine. Normal summon a Vol Flame, set a Vol Flame, whatever, set Super Poly, pass. They try to build their board, you go Super Poly, boom. Take care of both your VFDs, or your VFD and your Shen Shen, and take away my vanilla monster, and I get to go into a 3k boss monster that is going to be a Metalfoes. On the back of that, you will still be able to use your Metalfoes effects. You've got to be very, very careful under Shen Shen, because anything sent from the field to the grave will be banished. So you do have to be able to turn it off using a card like Imperm or anything like that. So under VFD is not the end of the world, but you still need a way to out them. We're then playing Double Desires purely because it's a pendulum deck. You want to be able to gain resources as early as you possibly can. Now, you saw through our lineup that we play a lot of 3-ofs. Now, I'm not saying Desires is the best way to do it, but when you look at all the other draw cards that you have access to, Desires is probably the better version of everything you can use. Now, the worst case scenario is you banish your Cleathorpe engine. Not the end of the world. If you're able to get to it first, then do its play, then make Infinity, then Desires, absolutely fine. But the idea is that you want to be able to get more Metalfoes scales, you want to get more Metalfoes cards. By the time you've already taken out of your deck the Metalfoes Fusion, Metalfoes Counter, Metalfoes Combination, all of the cards like that, once you've kind of got them out of the deck using their own effects, the Desires is only going to lead you into more scales for your Pendulum Summon, Extenders to get onto the board, or of course any type of counter traps or counter cards in the form of Super Poly. Then for the one-offs, we've got the 1 emergency teleport, the 1 reasoning, and basically the idea behind this is free extender and free extender. So now with all the new Metalfoes, you're actually playing level, well, if you include the Cleathorpes, you're playing 5s, 4s, 1s, 2s, 3s, 7s, 8s, and I believe even 10s. So you've got a lot of range to come from your deck. So I personally found these two better than Unexpected Die, because Unexpected Die is like, you need to control all monsters. So the only time that's useful is if you normal summon Rabbit and it gets negated, or you just open it up outright. So I thought reasoning is always, no matter when I get it, I'm always going to have a very high chance of getting a monster out. Emergency teleport is going to be 100% guaranteed I'm going to get a monster out. So I preferred that over unexpected die. Then for the fusion cards, we've got the one Metalfoes fusion and the one Metalfoes fusion. Now the Metalfoes fusion summon one Metalfoes fusion monster from your extra deck using up to one monster each from your hand, field, and/or face up from the extra deck as fusion material. You can only activate one Metalfoes fusion per turn. Now it does say up to, so you can use up to 0. You don't need to use one specifically, but what that does give you the ability for is, should you be having your Metalfoes face up in your extra deck, you can use them as material. It just means that you can't go, okay, I've got 3 face up extra deck, Metalfoes use all 3 of those. But I still think it's, again, a very good card. It kind of shows you what the Metalfoes are adding to the deck, in the sense that they are being able to use your resources that are already out of the deck. They're already on the board, they've already been used, they've already been popped. They're in places that are a little bit more difficult to get back in the modern game, where they were previously a little bit easier to just go, cool, Pendulum Summon 5 because I've got no link monsters. Then moving on to traps, we've got triple infinite impermanence. Like I said, you need to be able to turn off vanities. You have to build and adapt the deck to what you're facing. Now, if you're telling me you go to your locals, you're never going to face a vanities, fine. Take imperm out, put like an Ash Blossom in, put a Ghost Ogre in, put whatever you want in. You don't have to have hand traps in the deck, but it does help. And that's what I've tried to keep it minimal, purely on the fact that you want to make sure that your hand, like, it's not the end of the world if your hand is like 5 Metalfoes. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world, because you still have the ability to set up your scales, get your combination, get your counter, get your fusion spell, bring out a fusion monster, off you go. So again, you still have space for these cards, and you kind of need them in today's game. Then of course we've got the one combination and the one counter. Again, with the Metalfoes, you can recycle these, which is really, really useful and really, really good. And the idea is you don't really want to brick too much on these, because you still need ways of being able to destroy them to use effects and go further forward. So one is more than enough of each. So that's a bang on 40 card deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we play, and we'll go through the non-Metalfoes first. I suppose that's probably the best way of doing it. So for the XYZs, of course, we've got your Nova into Infinity, just a very small engine, comes off the back of the Cleaforce. I like it, I think it's really good and useful. Then we've got a Abyss Dweller and a Tornado Dragon. Now, the reason I've gone with these is because technically with Rabbit, you've got quick, easy access to get to a rank 4. Now, Abyss Dweller is probably one of the best meta-relevant cards right now. It shuts down Drytrons. It can really, really hurt Eldritch. It doesn't do a mass amount to Virtual World, but it's still a very, very good option there. And then of course you've got Tornado Dragon as a backup, and one thing you will learn when you play Virtual Worlds is if they play the spell first, or if they play the trap first, or get to the trap, Tornado Dragon is actually your better option, because you just pop it, and then it means that they have to use their normal summon to then extend on top of that further. Because we are playing these XYZs, you have to play one of the best boss XYZs around right now, and that is of course Zeus. Now if you don't have the Zeus, do not worry. You can kind of minimise this entire 3-card engine. You can go for more link plays if you want to. You've got to keep in mind that most of your Metalfoes are going to be normal monsters, so you're going to be restricted from stuff like Verti Anaconda, unless you're going to be getting effect monsters, unless you're going to be turning them into link spiders and stuff like that. Then moving on to the link monsters, we only really play 2 link monsters. We play the one Blackluster Soldier of Chaos. Now keep in mind, you do actually play Metalfoes Orichalc, and Orichalc, especially if you make Crimsonite as well with the Super Poly, more so the Orichalc, if it leaves the field, so if a Metalfoes, not Metalfoes, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you target one card on the field, destroy it. So if you link it off to go into BLS, you've got a BLS that can then get a pop off the back of the Orichalc. So we've only gone with the BLS Soldier because it's the only one you really need. You can go for something like IP Masquerini, you can go for something like a Nightmare Unicorn package all the way up into an access code, but really you kind of want to focus on the fusions in this deck and then use the fusions to go into something like Soldier of Chaos or go into Zeus using the rank 4 engine. And then of course we play the brand new Heavy Metalfoes Amalgam. Now this requires specifically 2 Metalfoes monsters, and then if this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard by a card effect, you can activate one of these effects. Target one Metalfoes monster you control, equip this card to it and it gains 1,000 attack, or target one Metalfoes card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card. So the best thing about that, you're bringing this back, you're unlocking 2 zones, and you've got a link 2 straight away, should you be playing a more link heavy version that you can start to climb up further into. Then moving on to the fusions. Now we'll go with the ones that are pretty much, the majority of these are all going to be Super Poly targets, but we'll pretty much work back to the utility cards eventually. So for our Super Poly targets, we've got the 1 Crimson Knight, literally just 1 Metalfoes monster plus 2 monsters with 3,000 less attack. So Super Poly away, Verte and Dragoon. Super Poly away, 2 VFDs. Like, it's just, it clears so many boards, it's nuts. The Ori count, less so of a Super Poly effect, more so for it's a general effect. So if a Metalfoes monster you control attacks a defense position monster, inflict double piercing damage. Nice. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, like I said before, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Then obviously another Super Poly target is your 1 Metalfoes Adamante. Again, 1 Metalfoes monster plus 1 monster with 2,500 or less. This is purely on those times where, let's say your opponent's got a Vanity's Fiend and you go Imperm on it. Super Poly, bring this out. Now, very, very rare circumstance, but it's ideally in those scenarios. This is when your opponent has 2 monsters that meet the description. This is when they only have 1. So it covers best of both worlds. And then you've got your Metalfoes. Now, the one thing about this, again, it really easily outs Dragoon. So it's 1 Metalfoes monster plus 1 Fusion monster. So incredibly easy. But obviously off the back of this is once you've created one of these guys here, you can then use one of these guys to go into this. So if a face-up Metalfoes monster, a face-up Metalfoes card or card you control is destroyed by card effect, except during a damage step, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Metalfoes once per turn. So this is when it's in the scale. Its monster effect is if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, shuffle 2 face-up Pendulum monsters from your extra deck into the deck, and if you do, destroy that card. You can only use this effect once per turn. Once per turn, if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card into your Pendulum zone. So again, the idea is 2,500 beta. In the example that you Super Poly, bring this card out. You clear 2 cards off your opponent's board already, and then you just go, alright, I'm going to pop another one as well, and recycle on my resource. Incredibly useful. Then of course we've got the good old faithful Metalfoes Mithrilium. So 1 Metalfoes monster plus a Pendulum monster. Target 2 Metalfoes cards in your graveyard and 1 card on the field. Shuffle them into the shuffle the targets from your graveyard into the deck, and if you do, return the target on the field into the hand. You can only use this effect of Metalfoes Mithrilium once per turn. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Metalfoes Pendulum monster from your graveyard or face-up extra deck. Pendulum monster. And then of course we've got what I personally think this is the best one. I love this card. We've got 2 Metalfoes Alkahest. Now this requires 1 Metalfoes monster plus 1 normal monster, must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Once per turn, during your opponent's turn, you can target 1 effect monster on the field. Equip that target to this card. This is a quick effect. This card gains defense equal to the combined original attack of the monsters equipped to it by this effect. You can use monsters you control equipped to this card you control as fusion material for the fusion summon of a Metalfoes fusion monster that lists them as material. So what makes this so good? Again, you're stealing your opponent's monster to then go, cool, I'm going to use it as fusion material now. And then they just go, well, you've already got a Metalfoes monster and then you've got an effect monster, or you've got a Metalfoes monster plus a fusion monster, or you've got a Metalfoes monster plus a monster with 2,500 or more attack. And it's just like, and the one thing is, if your opponent doesn't get rid of this, you just go, equipped, gimme. And then you've ended up getting monster, and then you've got monsters with 2,500 or less, and you can Super Poly out your big boy. It's just such a good card. Really, really love this card. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, I tried to keep it more pure. I tried to go more control as well with the deck. I just love the ability that it can abuse the living heck out of Super Poly. And I kind of thought with the current matchups and the way the game is right now, your deck needs to be able to build a board, which is why we've got the Infinity engine. And ideally what you're kind of trying to go when you make that Infinity play is you're ideally on a consistent basis trying to make Infinity plus Alkahest, which gives you 2 interruptions. And then if you back that up with a Super Poly, you're then having 3 interruptions. And then going second, you've got your Imperms, you've got your Super Polys to help clear the boards up, tidy the boards up, deal with any issues that you might be facing. And then off of the back of that, you can start getting aggressive and manage your resources a lot better. But for now, as absolutely always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Smash that like button, get it above 50 likes, and we will unlock the Yang Zing version of the deck, which again is incredibly fun because it abuses the ability of destroying just face-up cards on the field. And then that triggers your Yang Zing. So it's just like, yes, I'm going to keep floating. But as absolutely always, guys, stay safe and happy dueling.